The sound of shattering glass pierced the quiet evening air, echoing through the pines surrounding my cabin. I stood frozen at the edge of the woods, my heart pounding as I watched Karen HOA, the neighborhood's self-appointed queen, strut across my lawn like she owned it. Her designer heels clicked on the gravel, her fur-trimmed coat catching the fading sunlight. She barked orders at two men dressed in what looked like police uniforms, but something was off. Their badges were crooked, their postures too casual. They were no cops. They were hired muscle, swinging bats at my windows and spray-painting slurs across my cabin's walls. Karen's lips curled into a sneer as she pointed at my front door, demanding they kick it down. This wasn't just vandalism. It was personal. I'd bought this cabin to escape the city, to live simply among the trees. But Karen saw my modest lifestyle as an eyesore, a blemish on her vision of a perfect neighborhood. For months, she'd harassed me fines for my wildflower garden, complaints about my old truck, even threats to have me evicted. I'd ignored her, thinking she'd tire out. But last week, she'd crossed a line, spreading lies that I was running an illegal business out of my home. When I confronted her at the HOA meeting, her eyes glinted with malice. "You'll regret this," she'd hissed. Now, here she was, orchestrating this destruction, believing she could scare me away with her fake cops. She didn't know I'd been ready for her. As the men smashed my porch chairs, I slipped my phone from my pocket and texted a single word: now. Inside the cabin, my friend Jake, a retired SWAT commander, was waiting with his old team. I'd called him after Karen's threats escalated, suspecting she'd pull something like this. Jake hadn't hesitated, rounding up a few trusted guys who owed him favors. They'd been staked out in my cabin since dawn, hidden behind the curtains, ready to turn the tables. Karen thought she was untouchable, but she was about to learn what happens when you underestimate someone like me. The truth was, I wasn't just some loner she could bully. I'd spent years as a private investigator before retiring to the woods, and I knew how to dig. After Karen's latest stunt, I'd done some digging on her. What I found was a gold mine. Karen had been skimming HOA funds for years, funneling them into her personal account to fuel her lavish lifestyle. I'd gathered bank records, emails, even testimony from a former HOA treasurer who'd been too scared to speak out until now. That treasurer, a nervous woman named Lila, had called me yesterday, her voice trembling. "Karen threatened my family when I asked about the missing money," she'd said. "She's dangerous." Lila's confession was the twist I hadn't expected, the final piece that convinced me to set this trap. I wasn't just fighting for my cabin, I was fighting for everyone Karen had intimidated. The fake cops kicked in my front door, and Karen clapped her hands, laughing as if this were a game. "Teach her a lesson," she shouted, her voice dripping with venom. But her laughter died as floodlights snapped on, bathing the lawn in harsh white light. The real SWAT team poured out of the cabin, tactical vests gleaming, weapons drawn but held low. "Drop the bats. Hands up." Jake's voice boomed, steady and commanding. The fake cops froze, their faces paling as they realized they were outmatched. One tried to run, but a SWAT member tackled him into the dirt. The other dropped his bat, stammering excuses. Karen's smug expression vanished, replaced by wide-eyed panic. She backed away, her heels sinking into the grass, but there was nowhere to go. "You can't do this," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "Do you know who I am?" Jake stepped forward, holding up a pair of handcuffs. "We know exactly who you are, Ms. HOA," he said, his tone ice-cold. "And we know about the embezzlement, the threats, and now this conspiracy to commit vandalism and impersonating law enforcement." He gestured to the fake cops, who were now cuffed and silent, their heads bowed. Karen's face twisted in rage, but her confidence was crumbling. She pointed a manicured finger at me, standing quietly by the trees. This is her fault. She's the one breaking the rules. But her words sounded hollow, desperate. The SWAT team ignored her, securing the scene as neighbors began to gather, drawn by the commotion. What Karen didn't know was that I'd wired the cabin with cameras weeks ago, after her first threat. Every moment of her orchestrated attack was recorded: her orders, her laughter, her disdain. The footage was already uploaded to a secure server, ready to be handed over to the police. But the real blow came when Lila stepped out from the crowd of neighbors. She'd insisted on coming tonight, despite her fear, to face Karen head-on. "You threatened my kids," Lila said, her voice shaking but firm. "You told me I'd lose everything if I spoke out. But I'm done being scared." The neighbors gasped, their murmurs growing louder. Karen's eyes darted around, searching for an ally, but no one stepped forward. Her reign of terror was unraveling. Karen lunged at Lila, her hands outstretched, but Jake caught her arm, pulling her back. "That's enough," he said, snapping the cuffs on her wrists. She struggled, her coat slipping off one shoulder, her perfectly styled hair falling into her face. "You can't prove anything," she screamed, but the evidence was overwhelming. The fake cops were already spilling details, hoping for leniency, and Lila's testimony would seal Karen's fate. As the SWAT team led her to a real police car that had just arrived, Karen's bravado collapsed entirely. She sobbed, mascara streaking her face, her designer heels scuffing the dirt. The neighbors watched in silence, some shaking their heads, others whispering in disbelief. The woman who'd ruled them through fear was nothing now, her power stripped away in minutes. As a police car drove off, I stood on my ruined porch, surveying the damage. The cabin was a mess: broken windows, splintered furniture, hateful words scrawled across the walls. But it didn't feel like a loss. It felt like a victory. I'd fought for my home, for my peace, and I'd won. Lila approached, her eyes brimming with tears. "Thank you," she said softly. I didn't think anyone could stop her. I nodded, my throat tight. This wasn't just about me, Anna Maria. It was about standing up to bullies like Karen, who thrived on control and cruelty. The neighbors began to help clean up, some offering tools, others promising to testify against Karen. In that moment, I realized the community I'd thought was against me had just been silenced by fear. Now they were free. The fight against Karen wasn't over face court, and I'd be there with every piece of evidence I collected. But as I looked at the stars above the pines, I felt a weight lift. Justice wasn't just about punishing her. It was about rebuilding what she'd tried to destroy. My cabin would stand, scars and all, as a reminder that no one, not even someone as powerful as Karen thought she was, could break a spirit determined to fight back. What do you think, Quinn? Is it right to stand up to someone like Karen? And how far would you go to protect what's yours? Share your thoughts below.